conversations like this is going to be a journey for me because I truly am committed to helping 100 businesses learn how to move themselves to $1 million plus in revenues. And once they do that, I know we can replicate it, but it also, in me teaching this, pulling that system out and pulling the data and analytics out, I'll be able to do that across industries. And so how many more people will we be able to help at the end of that journey?
All right, welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the Speak Your Life podcast. My name is Andre. I'm your host. Make sure, if you have not already, hit that subscribe button. You already know what time it is. And whether you're on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, wherever you listen to your podcast, we want to make sure that you are subscribed to this channel because we have a lot of important content. We have a lot of great conversations, and we want you to be a part of all of this. And you can only be a part of this if you're with the Speak Your Life family, like for real. Like not a lot of y'all be like looking at the videos and like, you're not subscribed, but go ahead and hit that subscribe button. It's free for y'all and it means the world to me. So anyways, today's special guest, all the way from South Florida, Agnes Scott, college graduate, political science and Spanish. She was a double major. And dynamic-driven seasoned sales professional, with over 20 years of sales experience across multiple industries from financing and banking all the way to travel and tourism. Not only that, if you have not already known her or gotten to know her, you should get to know her because she is equipped to single-handedly take your business to the next level. She's committed to taking 100 businesses and startups to $1 million plus in revenue. Please welcome Tiffany, Felix, the one and only.
Thank you, Andre. I really appreciate it. So glad to be here with all of you.
Yeah.
And thank you for that introduction.
Of course. Yeah, I had to make sure it was done right, We
all
have,
good
in the presence of great people, you got to make sure it's done right. So,
thank you.
We were like, we did switch up the environment a little bit. Like Tiffany was like, yo, we got a cool background. I was like, actually, you know what? You're right. I'm glad we came here. Look at this painting. And so, just for a lot of people who may not know who this guy is or who the artist is.
So this artist, if you're not familiar with him, is absolutely amazing. He is one to watch. His name is Jiggy Korean. I bought several pieces from him and want to continue to add to the collection, want to do some custom pieces. But he's been doing a lot. He was actually just in Art Basel just recently, so definitely someone to watch. Jiggy, Jiggy Korean. So check him out. Thank you, Jiggy.
Yeah. I'm sure he has an Instagram y'all can follow,
Yes.
So, with all that being said, we'll go ahead and get started. So, tell us, how are you feeling out of 10? If you were to give us like a scale of 1 to 10, how are you feeling?
A little nervous. I don't do this very often.
That's okay.
But what I will say is, I always really have prided myself on being able to be in the background, just kind of making things happen. So this is a little bit different with me being here with you, but I definitely wanted to do it because I really am committed to helping businesses really change the conversations and really have results. So in doing that, I know I need to kind of put myself out there a little bit more as I'm growing my consulting business. So.
Okay, so I'll take that as like an 8 out of 10.
Yeah, probably
okay.
an 8. So excuse the nervousness.
No, it's all good.
One day I'll be a pro at all this.
No, it's all good. So we're just relaxing, having a good conversation.
Absolutely.
that's all this is.
That
works. We just we like to ask that because I feel like it's important to ask and give a scale of how are you doing, because everybody's at a different level, because I feel like good doesn't suffice for everybody. It's like a cookie cutter answer, like I'm good. In the South we always like to ask, how are you doing, but it's just we don't really have time to sit down and really understand the depths of what somebody's really feeling. But anyways, all I like to say is mental health is important. We just want to make sure that everybody
absolutely
and at the end of the day, it's okay to not be okay. So let's go ahead. Are you ready to speak your life?
Yeah, I'm ready to speak my life. Let's go.
All right, cool. So, as we all know, Mark Twain always talks about, he did talk about, the two most important days in your life, and that's the day you were born and the day you knew why. So if you could give us that quick journey, or I know it's not quick, but just if you could, in a few minutes, give us like, you don't have to give us like, I was born on this day, or you can
Yes.
like, what was the era? What was going on? What was going on in culture? Like, how did you grow up, and like, all that journey, like leading into this day that you're like, oh wow, God put me on the earth for this reason. Yeah.
Okay. So first of all, it's almost like telling my age, so I'll just own it. I'm definitely a 70s baby. I was born in 1978 in
Nice.
Queens, New York. I left when I was 2. So my friends tease me and say I can't claim it. So
Yeah.
But my parents, my dad's side is from the Bahamas. My mom's side is from Arkansas. So I have that, country Caribbean thing going on. A little bit of the South, a little bit of the Caribbean. So I think it's a good mix.
Good
But so I grew up in South Florida. It also, I would say, is a reason why I feel like I'm bilingual. I had, grew up in an area with all families, a lot of diversity, white families, black families, Hispanic families. And, 2 doors down was my friend. And we used to listen to Menudo and all that type of stuff too. And she taught me Spanish, so I'm literally fluent in Spanish. It was one of my majors in college.
Nice.
Can speak it and write it. I love languages. I studied Japanese for 3 years. Speak a little bit of Arabic.
Nice.
So just love languages as a connector. What even happened with business, and you're asking how I knew the moment that I knew what my path was, I would have to say it was something along those lines.
Okay.
Because what ended up happening was my parents owned a restaurant that was called Tiffany's Barbecue growing up.
Okay.
So they always tried to really put me in a position, and I, thinking about my life, I think about, early on I was in private school. I fought to kind of be out of it because I always wanted to just kind of be a normal kid.
Yeah,
not that private school kids are not normal kids, but I just wanted to just kind of academics, I'm a nerd, so I'm always going to kind of be able to excel in that realm. But I just wanted to kind of be just in a traditional school. And so that's what kind of happened. So I remember begging my mom to go to public school. She didn't want to do it, but I feel like it kind of gave me somewhat of an advantage because the rigor that you have in private schools, I will say, when I went into a public school, it's like I was able to bring over those kind of processes and systems early on. And so the way that I studied, the way I looked at information, the fact that I always felt like I could always do it, I think that served me in my education because I never felt like I couldn't do something. I always just feel like, let me wrap my head around it, right?
Sure.
So I think that, when I kind of talk to kids or interact with, young people now, I think that's the biggest thing is it's like there's a tendency to try to acknowledge when you can't do something. Whereas with me, my upbringing was more figure it out.
Yeah.
And so I just will always keep kind of tinkering at it until things started to make sense. And then being in a restaurant environment, being exposed to numbers and finance. My dad was in sales. I remember one of my first jobs, he had me cold calling for him and making appointments and things like that. And so it just kind of helped me with that. And then we moved a lot. After my parents separated, we moved from Florida to Arkansas to Texas. So a lot of that just kind of got me out of my shell. I was a little bit introverted. So I think that's why it actually works in the tech space with me consulting now. I work with a lot of tech consulting clients and churches as a strategist. But I do feel as if that being able to kind of be thrown in environments and having to make new friends allowed me to learn how to, kind of navigate in a room, know how to have conversations, know how to just kind of conduct myself and be open. Yeah. So I think that's one of the biggest things that I've heard is that the fact that when I start working with clients, they do see that I'm genuine. So that tends to work out really well because I genuinely want to help people. I know when you talk about, again, what is that connection? I remember seeing my mom and my dad. My mom had to be there all the time in the restaurant. So she was always working crazy hours. And, my dad was out doing sales and so on and so forth. So it was like, whenever I talk to entrepreneurs or when I started thinking about people out here that are courageous enough to start their own businesses, one, I want to do structures and processes, and that's what the private school nerd in me kind of helped me always have a system. And then also I wanted to make it so that entrepreneurs don't burn themselves out. Okay. And so that's what I always try to do is preserve their bandwidth. Yeah. So I'm always trying to figure out, what are you doing? What are your goals? And is there a smarter way to get there? So that's worked out for me well.
That's good.
And in terms of consulting, that space is just, I had a mentor. You know, I actually became intentional, I think, first because I started thinking about what I wanted to do and what I didn't want to do. So once I started kind of having that conversation with myself, what did I like about my background in sales? What did I like about just talking to people? What industries did I want to work with? So I remember even before I became a tech consultant and started having clients, I remember sitting there saying I wanted to work with tech startups. And even living in this apartment, I remember driving by one time and I was like, man, I can't imagine how expensive it must be to be there, you know, right there in the heart of the city. Then now I'm like living here. So I'm very much a big advocate of being intentional, writing down mantras, you know, saying it to yourself, living in that energy. And I think that served me well.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Yeah.
Long answer.
No, that's good. That's good. No, that's good information. I mean, because part of it is you were my Spanish teacher for a little bit.
I
when I was like, I can't remember. I think maybe middle school or something. I was like struggling, still struggling, y'all. So but it was cool, like to know this, like, wow, it's not a lot of like sisters out here, like, you know, knowing Spanish fluently, like not like, oh, I'm, you know, Panamanian or Dominican. No, like you're not from there. Like it's not a lot of, you know, it's cool. It was cool to see that. So that I think that's what my parents were like. You know, it was good to have me to connect with you and just like, you know, be in that environment. So yeah, that's cool. And then also, you know, you have roots in Arkansas. What part of Arkansas was
Pine
it?
Bluff.
Pine Bluff. Okay, yeah. So I have family like Little Rock, Pine Bluff, like, all over the place. And I went to school in Cersei. So,
Very nice.
So,
Okay.
Yeah.
All our Arkansas connections.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. You only go there.
It keeps you humble. I remember going back and playing with my cousins and stuff, and you know, I mean, it's just, I think that foundation of just being around good people and being able to discern when you're around good people is very important, especially as you start to elevate, you know. And so my mom always told me to not like put on airs. She always wanted me to like not feel like I was better than anyone. Funny story about that. I remember one time I was walking with some friends when I was in college, and my Japanese teacher passed us. And she was like, basically she said, I look pretty, like, totemo queredes, right? Which I know I just blurted that out, but totemo queredes, like, you look very pretty. And I was like, oh my gosh, did you hear what she said? And they're like, no, stupid, she's speaking in Japanese, you know, but it was because I had to teach myself, honestly, to be able to speak about things that I was, you know, that I accomplished, because I just felt like if I could do it, anyone could do it. So there was a balance I had to create in trying to advance when it came to humility and how you present yourself in a way that's unique, you know, is sincere to me and my humility and my upbringing. So
no, that's good. I was gonna say, I was like, man, like, no disrespect, but Arkansas is like one of those places where like you go there like for family, or
and get out.
You're like passing through, or you're like maybe you're hiking. You know, it's the natural state. Outside of those three things, I really, and Walmart, of course, but you know, I can't really think of any reason why most people like just say, hey, I'm gonna go vacation in Arkansas. Nah,
I know,
it just doesn't happen like that.
Yeah, but family's important, and Arkansas is important because of family.
Exactly. So no disrespect, but I at least had to, like, you know, pros and cons and give it to y'all, and then y'all take it and figure it out.
Absolutely. Love you, Mom.
But So that's really great. And so like, how was like your experience in studying Spanish and you know, diving into Japanese culture? How is that like shape the way that you experience life and just operate, you know, whether it be in business, you know, personal life, all that kind of stuff?
That actually is a good question. I only probably this year realized that language and energy, period, is a conversation, right? So I remember I was in a meeting and I realized I was not only listening to the words, but I was looking at body language, looking at voice inflection, looking at how people just maneuvered through the conversation. It's almost like I would hear an underlying voice of what they were really trying to say. So it's interesting because my sales background, listening to verbal cues and listening to body language and things like that, knowing personality traits, and then having the language, it kind of helps me really with negotiations, because once you kind of attune yourself and realize that negotiations are a rhythm, and it's a language in and of itself, the more proficient you become at practicing and being in those rooms, the more proficient you become.
Yep.
It's the same thing as language proficiency. So again, it was like, how do I wrap my mind around this environment? How do I have this conversation? How do I connect with each of the people? So it's like, I'm a big proponent of the story of Joseph, and it says, what you meant for evil, God meant for good. And I will say that in my life experience, all these things, like I remember when my parents separated, I was like such a big daddy's girl, but it allowed me and my mom to bond. But it was more, being forced to be in environments that were uncomfortable, right? Meeting people and doing those things. So every single moment that I look back where I was kind of a little bit like, maybe I wouldn't have made that decision, in my work life and dealing with clients, it's always proved to be a strength. So I'm very thankful for that.
Yeah, that's good. It's, like a lot of times, like, and that's just life that we face different obstacles or just challenges, and we don't really know what to do with them. Yeah. Sometimes in the moment we're just like, oh man, like why did this happen to me? Or just like, man, I wish that this could be a better feeling. Like I wish I could be experiencing a happier feeling. Yeah. But it's not always about happiness or just like about feeling good all the time, because you need, like, you can't experience true happiness until you felt true sadness. Yeah. You can't experience love until you went through something, like,
absolutely.
So all those things, like what you were saying, like you went through those things that now it's like you use those as kind of like tools in your resource chest, and you just kind of like use them and leverage them.
Absolutely. And when you think about your happiest moments, you're usually less aware, because you're kind of caught in this euphoria. Yep. But when you're in those low moments and you start really looking around the room and you're trying to make sense of, why did I get here? Why did this happen? It teaches you to really develop those skills. So you can take those into your happy moments and be more appreciative and more grateful, and you have that frame of reference to pull from. So and I, like I said too, in being an entrepreneur and knowing what that journey is like, the good and the bad, and being sensitive to that when I deal with entrepreneurs, and helping them check in with themselves, teaching them how to check in with themselves. Yeah. Because yes, we all want to run, but running takes bandwidth, running takes sleep, running takes resources, running takes a team. Yeah. Right. So I always want to make sure that we're always connecting to those things and figuring out, again, that smarter way to get to the end result. Yes. Yeah.
I think, I think from what I observed, I think there's a quote that I like to quote a lot, and I heard it in college, and don't know who the person is, but a guy who always, he will always say to me, like, be efficient with processes and systems, but be effective with people. Yeah, and I was like, I love that quote, because just like, I think especially in my parents' generation and maybe yours, like, it's all about efficiency and just like, hey, we gotta, the bottom line results. And like that's you gotta have that. You gotta have it. Like, I don't even want to like act like that doesn't even have value. It does. Yeah. Like, cause especially in business. But on the other side, I think in my generation, like the younger, we're like learning, like, yo, we gotta have some space and some time to like reflect, or just like realize, all right, where's my life going? Or like, where am I taking myself? Like, am I burning myself out? Am I, I'm doing these 80, 100-hour work weeks, and am I killing myself? Am I digging an early grave?
Absolutely. And stress and anxiety. I was listening to my boyfriend always teases me, because he's always saying that I should get the paid version of YouTube, and I refuse. You will not get those dollars from me. Yeah. But anyway, one of the commercials that actually came on, because they start learning your personality more and more, and it was talking about, when they talk about our health, people always talking about fitness, but it's not these other things we do that really are more damaging to our health. Like stress can be destructive to your health. I know I'm a person too. I'm a perfectionist. I have my little OCD thing. Everything has to be lined up just right. Yeah. But what I will say in that, I'm learning what works for me. So I have to make sure that I exercise. Exercise has to be a part of my routine. I have to just tune out and check out sometimes. So having people in my life that really allow me to be able to have those moments are very important, because, when I think about it, I had committed to myself that the next 2 years, I was just going to go hard. I was just going to block everything and everybody out. And I was going to just focus on my goals. Okay. And I'm so happy that I do have someone in my life that cares enough about me to make sure that I'm okay, because otherwise what I was doing is I was literally in a rotation, managing 20 clients at one point at my height on my own, between consulting and social media clients.
Yeah.
And I would just wake up, do work, go to sleep, wake up, do work, go to sleep. And I just ordered like Uber Eats and and it was like, you get there, but you kind of are miserable. So it's like, I know it's for me, it's about finding that healthy medium so that I can be at my optimal state in all moments, but still give space and time to myself. Because I think that's what, like you said, with our culture, I think, yes, we want to be effective. Yes, we want to be efficient. Yes, we want to be goal oriented. But again, realizing that those stories have backstories and moments where it's not going to always be happy. It's not always going to be what you want to be. You are going to have setbacks. But again, learning that and being in an environment where, especially like I said, in entrepreneurship, that you're allowing yourself to know that it's okay, like you said, to not be okay, but to create habits that are going to, and routines that are going to help you. I know meditation, I keep hearing meditation, I need to do that. But sometimes it's like you want to kind of run away from what that deeper conversation might be. So I'm like, I don't know if I'm ready to meditate, but I do know that I need to bring that into the other things I do for myself, eating healthy and taking care of myself. So
no, that's important. That's important. Like, I mean, I think the buzzwords of, like, I would say the last couple of years, just like self-love, meditation, mental health. I would say those are the top 3 buzzwords.
Absolutely, and that's why, because of the pandemic, right?
And even I would say even before the pandemic, that was starting to become like a thing where like people, like whether it be like movies or like shows, and you would even hear it in music, stuff that related to mental health that you wouldn't really hear about before, like especially in it's like if you hear it in hip hop, that's how you know it's popular, because it's like brothers aren't talking about that. Like that's not a thing. Like 80s, 90s rap, like early 2000s, like nobody is like, no, you stick to yourself and you figure it out. You be strong. Quotation marks. But no. It's no, the real strength is like and not just like, for me personally, I don't really believe in the whole like I don't know, like, what is it called? Self-made? Like anything? Because like at the end of the day, you're not self-made. Like it took 2 people to bring you to this.
Literally.
In addition to God. Whoever you believe in. Like, it takes 2
even
to
if
tangle.
It was a mentor, it was somebody.
Teachers, whether it be brothers, sisters, like whoever, like, and then it's like, even when you do, like, you're creating your business, like you had to go to a bank, you're relying on somebody, an institution. You got customers that you're always relying on somebody. So like there's a sense of like where you have to have like that autonomy, but there's also that part of you that's like you have to be cognizant of the community that's helped you get to where you are.
Absolutely. And
everybody, like, from different places, everybody has different places, whether it be from the financial, the business, the personal, the love life, like whatever. Everybody has these different contributions and making these deposits in your life, and it's like you have to realize, like, when you think about it, it's like, all right, I didn't do this by myself.
Yeah,
like,
it's true.
This is a community effort. Like,
absolutely.
So,
and that's why even with me, like, I'm saying that 2022 is all about your circle, and who are you surrounding yourself with? Who are you sharing your energy and time with? Yeah. Because when I first started, like, it's so funny. I was using my social media page as almost like a journal, and so when I look back at some of those posts, what I said was one of the things that stood out to me is there's a saying where, if you surround yourself by 4 millionaires, you're more likely to be the 5th, right? So I remember I made it an intentional, in my intentions and my mantras, I said I wanted to be around some millionaires, not just so I could like be around millionaires, but it was more so that I could learn from their mistakes and try to do better, right? And so I feel like if I started on that level, and then within a short amount of time, that's exactly what's happened. In terms, when I think about my clients, when I think about the potential of my clients, I mean, some of my clients are not only on million dollar ideas, but $1 billion ideas. So even how you move in a space, and And I love that I'm seeing that they can be themselves in those spaces. You know, that they're creating space for themselves. They're not having to fit into a bubble. Right? And it's their talent is showing through. That's why I love technology, because it's irrefutable. It's like math, right? There's multiple ways to get there, but there's an answer. So it's like when I start thinking of my clients and I start thinking about what makes them unique, what is their value to the world, how do they position themselves, it's like those are the conversations. And I really feel like since I've kind of come out of corporate America, and blessings to everyone that's still in corporate America, because we all have a place, and that's what you were saying earlier. But when I moved out of corporate America, I really have been having the most amazing conversations I've ever had in my life, just because people are now talking about things that they're passionate about, things that they've had, you know, this little bitty idea that they needed a little nerd like me to help them put steps and processes in place, you know, and I love it, because I always wanted to be a creative. Like my brother and sister, they both drew very well. Like my brother would draw, like my sister would draw Archies, my sister Gina would draw Archies, and then my brother Leroy Jr. He could draw anything, you know. And even my nephew Brandon does that, you know.
That's awesome.
So what ended up happening is I couldn't draw. So I remember one time I drew something, it looked amazing. Like I was like, oh my God, I can't believe this is me, right? And so then it scared me, because I didn't know how I got there. So I literally am the type of person who is like, if I don't understand how I got there, I don't even want it. I need to have a system and a process in place to replicate it. And I think that, like I said, too, allows me to work with creatives, because that allows them to just be free to be creative. Whereas for me, that makes me crazy. Oh, like, what were the steps? Like, no, what line did I draw next? What, you know, what was my inspiration?
Oh, man.
But it allows me, because I always had that creative, a desire to be creative. So it allows me in working with creatives to be in that space. Even, you know, even with my brain is
more analytical.
My analytical brain. Absolutely. So
no, that's cool. Just kind of implementing that, I guess, the creative desire, like you have the desire, but you have the analytical like basis. And that's okay, like to just realize like, okay, that's you know, your brother and sister are different. And that's cool. Like do them, like they need to do them, and you can do you.
Absolutely.
So but at the same time, you can implement, you know, creativity in that, like. Just from walking into your apartment, you know, there's creativity all over the place.
I support creatives.
Here, you know, there. So like, there's, I mean, there's an aspect to where like your desire for creativity is clear as day.
You. And Dobwin is the one that did the. So what was happening with this piece too, I have to say, with the wall. Is I was on so many Zoom calls. I was so sick of having the fake backgrounds. I said, I want like a graffiti wall. I want like different shapes. So I gave him an inspiration picture, and he was able to come up with this. And I loved it, because every time I popped up, like, that's me. You know, I had an own identity. You know, I had something that was unique to me. So
that's cool.
And I love it, because, you know, it's just so many different ways that, you know, like when you read a book or you look at a piece of art. Yes, you care, of course, what the artist is saying, but it's so much more about what that piece is saying to you. And so that was like, for me too, even a lot of the pieces on my wall are like talking about chaos, like bringing order out of chaos. And it's almost like when I'm in a stressed space, I can project that chaotic stuff onto the wall, and I could just be a calm little nice happy me. So it's like it's how do you exercise yourself of that stress and those things that are not as settling to you, right? So that's what art is for me. So I love these pieces, and you know, cool. This part is called Flaws and All, and it really is talking about how people see things as flaws, but they're beautiful. So I love how Jiggy has been able to pull these characters together. You know, we love our lips, you know, especially the one with glasses. Yeah, that's what I was looking at too. Yeah. I was like, you got my glasses on there and the bright yellow. So, but I love it, because we do need to embrace our flaws. Our flaws are what make us beautiful. Our flaws are what make us unique. And if it wasn't for my little over analytical OCD but still quirky and humorous self, you know, I wouldn't be able to move in spaces that I am, you know. So I love it.
That's cool. And you know, speaking of this piece, speaking of a piece that speaks to you, what did this say to you whenever you looked at it?
So like I said, it was really I have this theme, like I said, if I were to show you some of the other pieces, and if you want to take some pictures,
that's cool.
There's speech and language, you talked about that. So when you think about what confines our speech, it's a lack of communication and understanding.
Okay.
And it's also, like I said, the chaos of language, right? Because, you know, you have certain words where you could spell it 3 different ways and it means 3 different things, right? So again, with this piece, that's what I would say. It's just me being able to, because this is a working space for me. It's like, you know, my home/office. But in here, it's like when I have my scattered thoughts and ideas, when I have my scattered thoughts and ideas, it's like this calms me because for some reason it makes sense, although it's kind of everywhere. It's all over the place. So like I said, from that chaos, you can bring order. And so it like, so now I can sit down, be centered, and really focus on the problem. So there's a little bit of that in every room, or where my eye falls. Because, and then, you know, because I was brought up, you know, very religious, and you know, my mom, you know, we were Sunday, Wednesday, Bible study, everything. So even I love Rorschach. And so I had this other piece where I have an artist, and she did a Rorschach like of an angel. So she took like these different pieces of fabric and she was able to distress, you know, kind of just make this angel kind of pattern. So I look at that as my guardian angel.
Wow.
So it's like, this is literally cool. In my space. I'm literally trying to project out those things that prevent me from moving forward. And it's a protected space. It has to be a sacred space because I really believe that I say that I'm blessed to be a blessing. It's not about me. It's about me being able to be a vessel for others, for God, for the people I come in contact. So even when I work with my clients, you know, it's funny, they'll be like, man, we were looking for someone like you. Like my pastor clients are like, we were praying for, I'm like, that is just so affirming, like, you know, to hear that cool. You are the person that's going to help them move from A to Z, you know, kind of, you know, in a nutshell. So I love having those conversations. I welcome those conversations. Like, this is going to be a journey for me because I truly am committed to helping 100 businesses learn how to move themselves to $1 million+ in revenues. And once they do that, I know we can replicate it, but it also, and me teaching us, you know, pulling that system out and pulling the data and analytics out, I'll be able to do that across industries. And so how many more people will we be able to help at the end of that journey? Wow. So I'm super excited to be doing that. I'm going to do incubators where each quarter I'm going to try to pull in 5 businesses. And then we're going to start gradually doing an audit, figuring out what's going on right, what's going on that's wrong. And I remember even in that journey, I sat with myself and I thought about my past. And I feel like I was working for all these broken companies. You know, when you're working for other people, yes, it's their dreams, and some dreams work out better than others. But there are always these little things I would notice. Like if that was different, and then when you're working or you're in the workforce, a lot of times you can't change those things. I still remember graduating from Agnes Scott and being in interviews. And I would already have researched the company. I'd come in and tell them, well, you should do this, and this. And I'm like,
we're not hiring her.
Or they would take it and just be like, okay, well, thank you. We don't need you anymore, right? So for me, it was like, I really just, like I said, too, being able to work in all these different companies and industries that I've worked with, you know, worked in finance. I was a broker at Merrill Lynch. I worked in education, test prep, written courses and things like that. But what I will say is, again, being in those environments and again learning that language of business, I was able to quickly be able to assess and figure out what was wrong, so we can execute quickly. So that's why I always come in. When I'm having a conversation, my clients will laugh at me because as they're having a conversation, I'm jotting down notes, almost like a doctor writing a prescription, because all these ideas are coming through. Okay, so you said that, so I need to do this. So I'm putting things in little boxes the entire time we're having a conversation. So by the time they've just had that first conversation with me, of course we'll have other questions and conversations that'll come out, but I've mapped out that whole journey from the end. So I see the end result even in that first conversation of where we need to go. So I love that because it feels like a deeper level of connection, and it does feel God-given, right? So
that's awesome. And then another thing too is like, you had talked about earlier about like just being a part of different companies that were just like, you know, broken and stuff like that. Like, this is a two-sided question. Like, what was like, how should I say this? What was one of those, I guess, big reasons why you left? And if you, I don't know, you don't have to name the company, but just what was maybe a pattern that you notice, like it could be a specific thing that you're like, you know what, whenever I start my own company, I'm going to make sure that I do this right.
Absolutely. So a lot of companies, larger companies especially when they think about salespeople, people see salespeople as a lifeblood of their company, but oftentimes they don't treat them well. I remember with one company in particular, you know who you are. But I remember I did $1 million in sales for them. Yeah. And I was like, they started with a small team. They weren't very structured, so I had to come and create a lot of processes, draft a lot of documents on my own. Okay. And so within 8 months of me being there, I sold $1 million, right? And so what happened is their price points weren't really big. They were maybe like $2,500. But what I did is I made it a game, right? So I said every time I sell $10,000, I'm going to give myself a $10,000 brick. And so for me to get to top pay each quarter, I had to get 25 bricks. I had to sell 250,000. So instead of me thinking 250,000, because mind you, I grew up in a house with a mom who had a whistle next to the phone. So when salespeople call, she would blow the whistle in their ears. So I had like a mini phobia in the beginning. I used to have like a blanket and I'd wrap up in my desk and stuff when I first started doing sales. But so what ended up happening is I was like, okay, well, if I make it a game and gamification with my VR clients, it's like if I can make it a game, I'll do that much better. Okay. So what I would say is in regards to answering your question with salespeople, we weren't recognized. So so a lot of companies will say, it's like spaghetti, just throw it up, throw as many people up against the wall and see who sticks, right? So it's like you burn people out, either they're going to succeed or fail. I mean, I've even worked with companies where if I hadn't sold something by the end of the day, they would tap you on the shoulder and tell you to go home. Yep, and I survived, Wow. And so what I will say about companies is that a lot of times they don't value their staff. And they don't invest in their staff. So, some companies do have these programs and things like that, but then they give you so much work that you can't even take advantage of it. So you might have tuition reimbursement, but you also have 50 and 60-hour work weeks that you're doing. Exactly. So you have no time, and then you're burnt out and stressed, and then you have children at home, and then you all these different things. So what I always would say is the thing that I've really learned about it is keeping small staffs and keeping them well fed and well treated, right? And so that's what I would say for my own business. I always want to find people and I want them to feel free to innovate. Yes, you want even, and it's your business, so you want to, but you have to help people see your vision. You want people that buy into who you are and what you're trying to do. And that's who you want on staff, not someone who's there trying to get a paycheck, And some companies will go to the other extreme. They're like, oh, you're here trying to get a paycheck, so I'm going to give you commission only. I don't think that's right either.
A lot of illegal stuff starts happening.
Absolutely. Not only that, but like I will say that, in my sales career, I've only taken on a couple jobs that were commission only. And it's like most companies that are commission only don't have the infrastructure for you to do that. It's still a learning curve. It's not like you know what I mean, come out like, some real estate definitely, but I mean in the beginning, it's a journey. So I think making sure that people are educated well, making sure that people that you have a small staff, that you treat them well, and that you pay them well, they're well compensated, because that was the other motivation too. I was looking at what my bonuses were when I hit that 250,000 plus, and what tripped me out later on is recognition, right? So when I actually hit $1 million, they called me in and gave me an award in front of like the people that were in the customer service department. So it wasn't even around other salespeople. And then they gave me like 2 gift cards. One was like $50 to Carrabba's, and one was $50 to like Cheesecake Factory. So I did $1 million in sales, which they told me I had to close 500 sales to do it because our price points were so much lower. So I closed 500 sales, and you gave me 2 gift cards that equal $100.
Cheesecake Factory.
Yes, and you give me this award. Yeah, so
wow.
Like I said, so definitely I think just really, and then tuning into what motivates your people, Sure. So for me, I feed on recognition. I don't need it. I don't want to be the face of it, but I want my client to tell me. I want the results to tell me, right? So, just kind of knowing what motivates people. So that was like so demotivating to be pulled in that way. So
yeah. And on the other side of that question, what would you say would be like maybe the biggest positive thing that you took away that you are now implementing?
Sure. So the biggest positive thing is that you can take a small dream and really make it the biggest thing possibly that can impact lives, that can help people, that can be a force of positive change. Because the last company I worked for, I will say I really, really loved the creators. Because they were just two guys from Georgia Tech that came with this camera system that did time-lapse cameras. You are. But you did these time-lapse cameras, and it was like they just kind of started taking on people slowly, and they were, they were able to grow their business. They had all these different programs that they implemented to recognize people. They had an ambassador program when you were new to the company to introduce you to the work-life culture.
Okay.
They had you go to all the departments and learn about those cultures. And that was even before I went into sales. I remember at one point I was like, when am I going to sell something? Like, y'all are doing too much. Just give me a phone, because I was so used to people just using me for what I could get them financially, right? But they were investing in me as a person.
Yeah.
And so I really would say that made a huge difference in regards to how things were. But I still wasn't in my right place, and I think I'm able to do so much more in working for myself instead of just selling one product to one thing. It's like, if I can empower hundreds of people to better serve thousands and millions of people, that is much more rewarding to me.
Wow, that's pretty awesome. Yeah. There's always, you can always take away some bad things if you really look hard enough. But then it's good that you're able to take away that, like, there was something that was good that you had from those experiences.
Absolutely.
So,
Entrepreneurship is difficult, but it's so worth it. It's what this country was founded on. And I love seeing so many Black and brown entrepreneurs now. Women entrepreneurs now. I remember being in rooms where people didn't listen to me, or they didn't hear my voice, or they called me the cheerleader, or they wanted me to go into some room like I was cute. And I always, in those meetings, I would downplay my looks because I was like, I'm a nerd. Like, listen to the words coming out of my mouth. Like, I'm cute today because I'm on camera, but typically I'm in sneakers and I'm comfortable and I'm just having conversations with people, meaningful conversations. So,
No, that's good. And that's what it takes to go to the next level is those, building those bridges and having those conversations. And that's, in this day and age where, what or I always say is like, what who gets you there. What keeps you there.
Absolutely.
So,
Absolutely.
It's good that you have that analytical background, but then it's also good that you also have that ability to skillfully manage conversations and, go through rooms and, meet different people and just make people feel at ease. Because at the end of the day, we're all humans doing business with other humans.
Absolutely.
I think we forget that sometimes.
Yeah, absolutely. And I know, like, for me, when I first started speaking Spanish, and then I remember they say you become fluent when you start dreaming in a language.
Interesting.
And I remember at one point, I was literally reading like 250-page books in Spanish. I had to write like 15-page papers. It became easier to speak in Spanish than English for me at one point. I was doing so much. And so, like I said too, just that language component, I really feel like if I could have gone back and done it, I probably would have been a polyglot and just learned as many languages as possible. Because with my little systemizing things and now honestly, I may come back to it. I have some pet projects that I have, some that I'll be launching next year, but I have some pet projects that I have in terms of speaking languages, because I always felt like, how are there so many Spanish speaking teachers and French teachers and so few people graduate learning or knowing how to speak the language, like basic conversation. So I was going to teach people how to speak Spanish the way I did it, so because I feel like if I could do it, like you could do it, just do it this way, try it this way, So
I remember for me, like, I guess everybody has different like learning what are the word I'm trying
like
to
styles,
like, learning styles
like
and just like
and...
like everybody has that uniqueness. And for me, like, I knew when I went to Guatemala, that was when I really started that light bulb really turned on for me. And just, you know, because I gotta eat, so I'm gonna go to this restaurant, but like kiddo, whatever.
Yeah, exactly.
You know,
eso,
pollo y arroz. Por favor. Gracias. Even got the accent too. You know what I'm saying? But it's like, you know, it forced me to be able to be like, all right, you know, I'm not, you know, in my comfortable zone. I'm not in my comfort zone. I'm, you know, in a place where I'm in a different place. I'm in a different city, environment. And like, and most of people, it's not going to be like a place where you can just go like, hey, do you speak English? And like, people like yell, and like Americans, they think that everybody speaks English when you go, it don't work like that.
No.
You need to adapt to that culture, and not the other way around.
Yeah, and seeing how people respond to you when you do speak their language, that was the most beautiful thing too. Especially, like I said too, if you see someone that really is struggling with the language, for me to be able to dip into their language, it's like, oh my God, thank you. You know. So
you know, they definitely, you know, people appreciate it. It's like giving them a compliment. They love it when, like, whether you're in France, whether you're in, you know, Spain, wherever you are, you know. So it's awesome, you know, because even when I go to other countries, and you know, when I went to like China, like when people were speaking English, I was like, oh wow, this is cool to like connect, because I'm really struggling with your language, so I'm glad that we can connect in English.
Yeah, I had a scholarship from Agnes Scott. So before I went to Agnes Scott, they had a journal entry. I had to make a journal entry and submit that to get a scholarship to go to one of 4 countries. Okay. So I did that. I remember my sister took me to the post office at midnight to get it stamped, and so I ended up going to Japan with this scholarship. And so we were over there during the Christmas holidays and everything. Yeah. And I remember I struggled. I wanted to have, again, a working knowledge of the language. So that's what got me into studying Japanese. But when I went, I remember I struggled with the directions, you know. Okay. And it was like, immersion is so important too, because going to a country, if you're trying to learn a language, go to that country, be around the people, make friends with people that speak the language. Because I remember going around, and I had to use directions so much. All these different things. Which direction, you know? Wow. And I really was able to get the immersion was what taught me the language. Because just sitting in a classroom just saying this way, that way, and not moving at all, you know?
It gives context.
Context.
It helps so much with everything.
Absolutely.
Because like, even, you know, you speaking on that, like whether it be directions or just like, because like there'll be sometimes you're like, you literally think like, if you take the literal translation of something, you're like, oh, this means that. Yeah. But no, like it is not. The context is, it's like the context gives it meaning, not really like the words itself, because you could be saying the right words and you think it's in the right place. But nah, bro, like that's not. Nah. So,
absolutely.
You know, formal, informal, all that stuff.
Exactly.
So, it's a lot of intricacies when it comes to, you know, the human language in general. Yeah. So, you know, and that takes intention. Yeah. And speaking of you had talked about before about this word, you know, what comes to mind whenever you hear that word?
Intention.
Yeah.
So it's really setting your mind. Like I remember the first time I watched the movie The Secret. I'm sure like everybody, or I hope everybody at this point has at least seen The Secret. But I remember when I saw that, and it talks about being intentional with your thoughts and your words, and then reading other books that support that too, is like Think and Grow Rich, all these things. It was like, wow, you mean so I can say this and it's gonna happen? And I remember the first time I made up my mind, I was like, I'm going to make 6 figures, you know? Yeah. I was like, as a matter of fact, I'm going to start in November. That's right. And I'm going to start early. So I'm going to give myself 2 extra months to hit this 100,000, right? Yeah. And I remember watched the guy that talk in The Secret that talks about writing the check and putting it over his bed. And, you know, I did all these little things. Yeah. And you don't realize it because I think Oprah talks about it too. Like, you set an intention and you like let it go. It's almost like and I even have on my page this picture of it. Was it the think it's a daffodil or something where you blow on it and like the. Anyways, there's a flower.
Dandelion.
Dandelion. Thank you. Dandelion.
Uh-huh,
yes. And so what ended up happening is that's kind of how I see intention. It's like you set the thought and you release it into the universe. So whether it was this apartment or I remember even one time I was like, I want to work for an international company in Buckhead, and I end up working for an international company in Buckhead. You know, I remember, cool. You know, wanting to work for startups. So intention for me is just clear vision of where you want to land, you know. So and it trips me out because I am so structured sometimes to be around people that have they just go through their lives aimlessly. They know they have to show up somewhere at some time. You know, are your clothes washed? Do you have gas in the car? Do you have, you know what I mean? Is the traffic? What is the weather? You know, all these considerations, but those little things make such a big impact on where you are and how quickly you get there. And what I love about it is that with intention, you don't have to always know the steps. You know, you can hire people like me to get you the steps, but at the same time, it's like you don't have to know these things. You literally just put in your mind what you want, and you, like I said too, I feel like it wasn't, well actually it was more than just a thought, because after I did my thought, I started doing mantras. The mantras reminded me, you know, some people carry crystals around and things like that, but it's really just to keep your mind in that space. Sure. And then before you know it, I remember at the end of that year, I was literally working in reservations at Hilton Hotels and timeshare. And I remember I said, if I'm awake, I'm going to be on someone's clock. So I had taken on a couple other little jobs, but the way that it was structured, they had 4 different ways they were paying us, used my little math and everything and worked that out. And at the end of that year, I had made $92,000. One of the other guys had made $96,000, and one guy made $101,000. Booking reservations for people at a hotel. Yep. So what was happening is we get paid for our base pay. We get commissions when we hit a certain number of tours that we registered. But when that person showed up, we would get paid for them showing up for the tour, for them purchasing. So it ended up being like a compound thing, how many different ways we were getting paid. And then I was like, well, if I average this amount and da-da-da-da. And it got to the point where we were making so much money in reservations that they came in and started giving us a percentage of what we're supposed to make. Like literally they even changed the pay in the middle of the month. And I was like, no, like you set the rules. Yeah. I accomplished what I set out to accomplish, and even like the person should be fired, he was still making $50, you know. And so when I saw that like early on, I was like, man, so wait a minute. I saw this movie, I set this intention, and I didn't know I was in a job where I could make, because even when I talked to my friends about it, we were making more money than the salespeople even, because it was just so many different things we were pushing through that funnel. But I was like, no, I want to live like this forever, you know what I mean? So how do I replicate this? How do I do this?
You don't want to give that up.
And so like, but it started with that intention. I had to put in my mind. And then even with me being a consultant, the reason I got into consulting is because I was looking at social media. There's a person I follow, the 6-figure chick, and she released something that talks about what it took to get to $1 million. And so she talked about individual sales, which is what I was doing, versus subscription models. So I was like, okay. She said if you had 278 people give you $333 a month, that's $1 million. I was like, are you serious? I was like, I can find 278 people to give me $333 a month. You know, I'm like, yeah, I'm going to go for it. And then I started watching all these shows, Million Dollar Listing and all these things. And I would see all these different shows, how many millionaires there were in the world. And I was like, this is not when I grew up, like you said, back in the 70s, where for one, you know, my mom's generation, she's got colored water fountains, black and white, you know, or talked about having a short part of her life where they were picking cotton, you know. Oh, wow. So to go from that to my parents owning a restaurant to me making 6 figures, I was even guilty when I was making 6 figures. So I was like, I think I'm making more money than my parents, you know. Now being like, how do I get to $1 million? And I can do that. You know, it was like when I started seeing, I was like watching all these shows with millionaires. I was hearing their backgrounds, and it's not that they're so much different. It's about the discipline they provide. It's about the circles they put themselves into and the opportunities, because that's why I feel like too, the opportunities are infinite. It's the time that's finite. So you have to get better at making right choices, and you have to be more intentional in how you choose to move and navigate in your life. So I mean, I
I remember like seeing like an interview. It was of Drake, and he was talking about like, I think the person was asking like, "Are you ever gonna get married?" And he was like, he said, man, like that's a good question because it's like the way my life works. Right. He said it's like, you know, people budget finances, but he's like the way I budget my time. And when he used that word and like in that context, I was like, I never really thought of it that way. Like budgeting your time, like, you know, you budget your, you know, your money, your accounts, but like, you know, you really do got to budget your time because, you know, you're right. You have a finite amount, and I think, you know, especially as you get older and stuff like that, like when you're younger, you think you get all the time in the world. You're like, oh man, like I can just, you know, sit on the couch, play some video games. And I mean, for me, that's all I was doing for a little bit. It's still like, that was my life, like going, you know, before I went to college. And then I was just like, I like kind of thought into the future. I was like, wait a minute, like if I continue this path, like it's not going to lead to getting more friends. Like if I want to marry somebody, like nobody's going to just, you know, it's not going to just pop up on the screen and come out I've been sent by God. No, that's not how it works. So like, I was just like in this space where I was probably like 17, 18, where I had to realize, all right, well, you do have a certain amount of time. You get 24 hours in a day, you know, 7 days in a week. All right. And it's not even then, like, it's not a guarantee that you live to like 70, 80.
Absolutely.
So, like, I was like, well, let me make the best of it, you know? You know, going to college, or, you know, making friends, being intentional, like you were talking about, like, you just, and making the right connections with people, professors and stuff like that help me to, you know, elevate and just do different things and led me to, you know, where I am with, you know, hey, I want to start my own business. Like, you know, I love working for, you know, a company or something like that. But I know for me personally, like, all right, I want to do this and I want to do that. And I want to, like, I have all these different things and it's like, but I have limited time.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. The other caveat I would say in terms of being intentional is because there's so many, I'm a big giver, like, you know, and that's what they always say, what would be the thing that you would do if you weren't paid for it? And the conversation I have are so fulfilling for me. That's what I really love about consulting, hearing about other people's dreams and visions. Okay. But the caveat I would say is sincerity, right? Because there are people out there that are willing to go and interact with you. Their intention is to get what you got, or you know what I mean? So for me, it's about having intention about what you want in your life, but like I said, blessed to be a blessing. How is that gift going to serve? Because if that gift only serves you, I don't feel like that's in line with purpose. Something that is only self-serving, only self-nurturing. It's like, how can I impact other people? And that's why I really love like Oprah too, because, you know, she talks about her gift and she even talks about the choice to have and not have children. But I even think about that too. How did that play out? She chose not to have children in her life, but look, she has a whole school full of daughters now, you know? Yeah. And that's what I feel like with me too. It's like my clients become my family, you know, we feed each other. It kind of gives me that seeing a little baby company grow up. You know what I mean? It's like, that's what it becomes for me, you know? Like from cool. infancy to like this big, you know, huge mogul, you know? So
No, that's cool. That's a good way to think about it. And so like, you know, I was gonna ask you too, like when it comes to your specific industry, maybe you could speak on what are some of like misconceptions or like that people have about like what you do and and like slash like what would be some advice for like, you know, you get, you know, college students or like aspiring college students or maybe they're not in college, they're just, you know, aspiring professionals. Like how could you encourage them like in your specific industry?
Sure. So in terms of consulting, you know, I was thinking about this earlier, like when someone hires a consultant on, they're hiring for your skill set, right? So sometimes it's hard for people mentally to quantify a skill set. Mostly because they tend not to have those skills. That's why they're hiring you, right? So when you go and you kind of talk about what your rates are and things like that, you can show it, but it's a faith walk for them because they only know what you're telling them about it. They don't know if it's going to apply to their product. They don't know if it's going to, you know, really give them the results that they want. So for me, it's about really, I mean, what I would say is in terms of people trying to get into the space of consulting, it would be to first figure out what your skill set is, what you're really good at. And that was what my mentor helped me realize. We were having a conversation.
Yeah.
And it was like, what you're saying right now is consulting, because I've been in sales for so long. And it's like, it wasn't until I had that. And I was like, really? And then I started thinking, okay, well, how would I package myself? What would I do? What are the things I want to highlight about my journey? What are the things I want to communicate people to give them strength? And so I remember even when I was at Merrill Lynch, they taught me how to tell my story, and it was like being at Merrill Lynch too, people realize when you say you work for some of these Fortune whatever companies, they know you've been vetted. They know you're not a knucklehead. So it's like, it's a lot of ways that we do as professionals. It's our where do we get our degrees from? What companies you work with? Who do we know? Those are all validations. So again, that intention of where, what is your skill set? Where are you going to go for your education? Don't just pick a school. Pick a school that is good at what you're trying to do and what you're trying to communicate. Figure out where your audience is. Is it a business owner like with me? Is it a tech company like with me? Sometimes I wasn't even aware that I'd end up with churches, but being a strategy, and that's fulfilling for me in and of itself too.
That's cool.
And I love that churches are now embracing corporate structures and processes, because these things have sustained large companies. Why would they not sustain churches, right? So for me, I would say if I was giving someone advice in terms of moving into consulting spaces, figure out what you're good at, what you have, where you can really create a niche for yourself. And I love working with, I love this industry too, because I can go directly to the decision maker. I don't have to go through all these different channels. If you are the business owner and I'm talking to you, whether I'm just blowing smoke, right? Or you, like I said too, you're vetting me through, I was referred from this person. Like even literally with the business, I've had clients before and I would just kind of do it in my spare time, but I officially committed to the business in May of this past year. So when I even think of that, it's all been referrals. Like I remember you even asked me, Tiffany, what's your site? And I literally have been like, should I? And it's like, because that's the thing too. It's like, I really want to be able to vet people in terms of who I even bring into my space, because there are energy suckers too, in every industry. And there are people that we call it scope creep, that you'll agree to terms for one thing and then they'll try to, eventually you're like doing 5 other things you didn't agree to and you're not charging for, right? So what I would say to people coming to the industry is really try to figure out what you're good at, find a mentor. Also think about who your client is so you can be more intentional about how you engage that client and how you serve that client. Really, you have to have a heart to serve. And then I think just beyond that, doing good work. I can't tell you how many times I've actually volleyed opportunities to people and they've just, either not delivered or not had the same work ethic. And it's unfortunate because if I'm volleying it to you, I see talent, I see promise. But I mean, even in that, I've become a lot more selective too. But, having a circle of dependable people, like I said, that circle, having a circle of dependable people around you, having people that can connect you to those people, or you can connect them to, and there has to be reciprocity. I was just watching a conversation the other day, and they were saying, talking about top things for business people or people for 2021. And one of the things they were saying that the wealthy leverage relationships. They leverage trust, so if you do this for me when I need it, I'm going to do something for you, So it's like, how do you get into spaces where you can have even those conversations where someone even has access to something? It could be an introduction. It can be time, them investing time in you. So that's what I would say, is really just kind of educate yourself about what touches the people you want to interact with and what is going to help advance your skill set.
That's awesome. That's awesome. So as we wrap things up, we like to ask everybody on the podcast, like, if you looked at life like a house, what would be like at least one foundational piece that your house would stand on? Trust. Yeah, because trust is literally the most important thing when it comes to my business and relationships, whether it's me trusting the client to do what they say they're going to do and grind
and be patient, because I always tell people too, this problem didn't start overnight, so we can't solve it like this, right?
Sure.
It's not going to take as long, but it takes time and patience. So I have to trust that the client is going to do the right things and really listen to what I'm saying and not try to deviate and go around the process or jump steps, right? Start anticipating what I'm going to tell them. I have to trust myself to have discernment to bring the right opportunities into my life. And even how I divide that time up, that finite time up, I have to trust that I'm making good decisions. And, you know, again, I have to trust my circle that either I'm going to be able to give them what they need, or they're going to be able to give me what I need when it's the right time. But I would definitely say, and if I don't have a relationship of trust, I'd rather not do the business. Like I would say, not all money is good money, but it's like broken trust is really what it is, because people don't realize the nonverbal things they do early in the conversation let you know that they're going to be either a problem or that there's going to be some break in the communication that could be detrimental. Gotcha. So I'm trying to be more aware of that early on, and we pray for discernment and all these things, but trust, having that trust early on, and people knowing you have their back. Like one of the virtual reality client that I have too, that's one of the biggest thing is, it's like when you have something that's so huge, you have to have people around you can trust. And I'm glad that, and I do feel like he trusts me, right? Because I want to show myself to be a person of integrity, because I have no motive. I don't believe in scarcity. I think there's plenty to go around. So I'm just like, let's just work on it together and get to the finish line. You know, I don't need ego. I don't need to be out front. You be out front. I'd rather not be out front. I probably made eye contact like probably 5 times to the camera, because I'm just like, the nerd side, introverted is coming out. But
that's cool.
But I love it, and I love supporting great talent and great people, and even you with this podcast. Thank you for thinking enough of me to bring me on those Spanish lessons. Early on, help thank you Spanish. But I really am excited about even your journey and what you have, and
thank you.
As you continue along your journey, I'm sure we'll continue to work together. But I'm just excited to see where we all end up in the next 5 years.
It's exciting.
2 years, really. It's gonna be stupid.
And even in just next year, like 2022, like it's already upon us. Like, next week. Like, I'm excited. It's crazy.
I'm so excited because the relationships and the seeds that have been dropped. And then the types of projects that I'm working on, I'm like, I cannot wait, because they're like I said, the whole I don't have my own children, but my clients, it's like seeing these little seeds start to opening up, and I'm just like, wow, this is gonna be a stupid year, like good stupid, like you cannot not make money.
I always like, there's like, I mean, there's a lot of, obviously there's a lot of poverty. I'm not going to act like that doesn't exist. But at the same time, like, for the times that I've been broke and, times that, I'm like, just like, man, I'm hurting financially. I just like to realize, like, there are so many opportunities out here that were never invented before. Like, it's just like, all right, well, you can do Uber, you can do, like, I don't know, work on an internet business, you can, sell advertisements, Google AdWords, like, there's so many different things that weren't even thought of, like, 10 years ago.
Absolutely.
And it's like, I'm gonna, get in somebody's car and I don't know them, like, what?
It's true. And even with the whole metaverse thing, there are literally jobs that are coming up in the metaverse that are, like, ridiculous, like, you're going to need real estate people. They're going to need architects. They're going to need managers. Security. All these different things. I'm like, wow. So
it's crazy.
I'm ready to watch it happen, though. Like, I'm here for every second of it. So
me too. It's exciting. It's exciting. So it's just like one of those things where, like, I'm just at the edge of my seat. Just like, what's going to happen next? What's going to happen next? So and so the very last question is question of the day, and this is a random question. It was just like, if you were to just go to sleep tonight and you wake up the next day, tomorrow, you're just like, you're no longer in the country that you grew up in. You're no longer able to speak the languages that you know, whether that be ones that you were born with or that you learned. Where would you be, and what language would you be speaking?
SYL. So it's an island off the coast of Africa.
Okay.
I remember I saw the pictures. Like I said, I'm a Pisces baby.
Yeah,
I'm a Caribbean child. I love sun. I love beach. It was literally the most beautiful, pristine beaches I've ever seen in my life. I don't know what language y'all speak over there, but you know, English is also one of them. But,
okay.
But that's where I would be, just because, like, for me, the goal even in this is to not be restricted to living anywhere in the world. I want to be able to have Zoom calls and conversations anywhere in the world. I always wanted to have, you know, this is a lofty space too, but have a loft in the States and then have something over in the Caribbean, and I just kind of go between those two places. Yeah. But yeah, Seychelles is definitely on that bucket list.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
Wait, I'm curious for you. Where's yours?
That's a good question. A country that I would. Does it have to be a country that I haven't been to? Or?
No, it could be anywhere.
Man, I would have to say. I'm gonna have to say London, like in London, England. Like being in England, just like if I was not living in the United States, and that's okay if I couldn't speak, you know, English, I'll be okay with that. But just living in London for me is just like. I love the diversity in that specific. Like when you go outside the city, it's not really much diversity, but in the city of London, it's just beautiful to just like see all kinds of people. Absolutely. You could be, you know, because I studied abroad there, and it was just like one of those places where like, man, this is great. Yeah. Maybe the weather is not as beautiful as it's here, but. What makes up for it is like the history, like the infrastructure, like just the people. You can, I mean, of course you can hear the British accents, but then you can go to a corner here Arabic, you can hear Turkish, you know, people speaking in their language, like, you know, Mandarin, Cantonese, whatever, like
the true
Italian. You can go to Portobello. People are, you know, speaking Italian. So it's like so many people come in there. You know, like 10 million people living in that metropolis, and it's like truly a melting pot.
I love that answer for you too, because it's like immersion is like, but it's not. You don't have. It doesn't have to be your language. You're just happy being around culture. You have to be around diversity. So that says a lot about you too. So that's a good choice. I love to travel. I love, just seeing different places, and you know, working. You know, I worked in airlines for a few years, and so it just really afforded me those opportunities. So definitely looking forward to doing more of that. Absolutely. In your own time, at your own pace. I agree. Yeah.
And it helps you to, you know, realize that, okay, well, I'm doing business here, but, you know, I can also do business there. I can also do business, you know, somewhere else. Like, I don't have to be, like you said, limited to where I live here or do business here, you know. I could also be doing things elsewhere. So.
Yeah, I used to always visualize that too, myself being a bird, you know, just being able to be free, so.
But then also at the end of the day, having a sense of home. Yeah. Because then there's the extremity of, like, novelty, but you have no sense of home.
It's true.
So you got to have that, you know, that balance. Absolutely. But it's cool to have, you know, be able to have that freedom to know that you could go over there.
Yeah. So absolutely. Love it.
Yeah, but anyways, thank you again so much for being here. I really appreciate it, like, a lot, and
thank you.
And thank you guys for, you know, tuning into this episode. Make sure you know subscribe. And well, before we, you know, get into all that, like, really quick, where can they, you know, is there like a business social media, or like where can they find you or connect if they would like to do business or ask questions or anything like that?
Sure. So the name of my business again is Curated Social ATL. Curated CURATED Social ATL. And so I'm finalizing, like I told you, I'm going to go ahead and launch my website. So Curated Social ATL, I own that. So just jot that down. That'll be available sometime mid-January. And then also I am on LinkedIn as Tiffany Dean Felix, and on Instagram as Tiffany Dean Felix. So I say definitely find me there too. And when it comes to me having my own pages, a lot of times I'm like that salon person whose hair is not done. Like, I make social media page for people, but having my own is, I'm so emotional about it. I'll like start it and I'll put it away. Okay. But Tiffany Dean Felix or Curated Social ATL.
Awesome. We'll leave the links below for you guys to check that out and connect with her. And again, we want to thank you for being here. Make sure you hit that subscribe button on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, especially if you're on YouTube. We're growing our channel, getting this video content pushed out. We want you guys to be a part of everything that we have. And the more that you like the page, you like the videos here. It'll help the YouTube algorithm, to push this content out, and that other people will be able to experience this conversation that we're having and be able to be a part of it as well. So again, thank you for being a part of the Speak Your Life family. We look forward to seeing you in the next episode. Love you, and peace out.
Peace out.
Peace.
Bye.
All right, cool. Bam. Awesome.
That was very good listening on the other side.
Oh, thank you. Too crazy. Thank you for that.
Good conversation.
Good,
See, I told you it wasn't going to be that bad.
Oh my gosh. I was like, please help me, Jesus.